The following is a Shaw TV Public Affairs presentation. Constituency Report is produced as a public service by members of the BC Legislature through the facilities of Shaw TV.
Hello and welcome to Constituency Report. I'm Tracy Grimsroot. Very pleased to welcome Tom Shypitka to the studio today. He is MLA for Kootenay East. Welcome, Tom. How are you?
Thank you, Tracy. I'm doing really well.
Yeah, great to have you on the show. And I should also mention your other role as well. You serve as the BC Liberal critic for Energy and Mines. How are you enjoying that so far?
Well, it's great. First of all, an honor to represent Kootenay East and supplying support for the critic's role in Energy and Mines. A lot of learning, a big learning curve for first-time MLA. I'm learning a lot about the industry in whole. I mean, something that's near and dear to my heart, being from Kootenay East, all those communities, that whole Elk Valley area was built on mining. So to be this close to the forefront of mining in our area, that's really an honor for me to do.
Definitely. Kinder Morgan has been in the news a lot lately, and Energy and Mines are often implicated in public discussions of oil. Can you share some thoughts on what's been happening with regards to the pipeline and the NDP's actions to date?
Well, I mean, we're seeing a lot of, creating a lot of uncertainty right now in the industry. We're reviewing things, we're consulting, and those are good things. But when you take something that has been through that process already, that has had First Nation consultation, that has had government approval from the province and the federal government, and to renege on those things, to me doesn't send a very good signal to the industry as a whole. It doesn't send a good message to the investors, and that uncertainty really erodes our economy eventually.
You've spoken a fair bit about maintaining the competitiveness of BC's mineral exploration and development. Do you see those priorities being reflected in the actions of the government?
Well, to be a quick answer, no, I don't actually. Once again, some of the process, the delaying and trying to appease certain sides of maybe some of the people they've been in bed with, so to speak, over the last 16 years is now taking its toll on BC taxpayers and the industry as a whole, and it's costing us jobs. And I, for one, want to hold the government accountable to those actions and make sure that they're doing the right thing for BC and not for their own political agenda.
In February, the NDP introduced its first full budget, which included a speculation tax, and this has been a hot issue of debate. What are folks in your area saying about it?
Well, I mean, the speculation tax, let's call it what it is. It's for British Columbia, it's a cabin tax. It's a recreational tax it sends a message once again to British Columbians that you can save and you can scrimp and you can do all the things right and you can invest and maybe get yourself a second home or a recreational property, and we're going to tax you again. And in my opinion, the tax isn't really addressing the issue of speculation. Speculation is something we're seeing overseas or not in our country or in our province for that matter, and it's hitting us home here as BC residents, and it's an ill-conceived tax. It's not well thought out. They're kind of making it as they go along, and British Columbians are upset about it, and deservedly so. So we're seeing them reshuffle or rethink right now, but it's coming at a cost. BC doesn't know where we're going, and it's up to government to provide that clarity and that certainty, and they're not doing that with this tax at all.
Perhaps you might argue also poorly thought out was the employer health tax that they've sprung on businesses, nonprofits, you name it. What are people saying about this one?
Yeah, well, the employer health tax, let's call it what it is. It's a replacement tax on the MSP. Government said that we were going to get rid of the MSP, but they really haven't gotten rid of it all. They've replaced it with this, once again, ill-conceived tax, not well thought out tax on an employer health tax. And I think government may wanted to target a certain group of individuals in the province on this employer health tax, but what they've done is they've now rolled in municipalities, hospitals, nonprofit groups, people that can't really absorb this kind of form of taxation. So once again, ill-conceived tax is bringing uncertainty to everyone in BC, and it's not doing the job it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. And it could certainly cause some negative impacts, laying off of staff, that sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you have a nonprofit society that's barely making ends meet and doing what's right for British Columbians, and then you impose a tax like this that has never been on their radar before, what do? Mm-hmm. You either increase revenues and charge British Columbians more, or you lay people off, or a combination of both. But either one is a negative to our economy and our people that work and live here.
Mm-hmm. You touched on this a bit earlier, but in terms of eroding BC's competitiveness, does this tax and spend agenda of the NDP contribute to that?
Yeah, so it certainly erodes our economy. When you tax and spend, it's almost like cutting off the head of the goose that laid the golden eggs, mm-hmm. where you're trying to get everything out of the people that are actually doing the best for the province. So, for example, industry. I mean, you tax them more to provide the services you need, but you make them less competitive, which means an erosion of those industries and those investors, which also erodes the revenues you need for social services. So you in turn go back to the hopper again and tax more, which further, and it's a perpetual downward spiral. And that's what we're going to see in this province, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm. Proportional representation, that's another hot topic of debate ahead of a referendum that will be held this fall, of course. What would you like your constituents to understand about this issue?
I would just like them to, I've never been opposed to changing or altering or streamlining or making our electoral system different than what it is now. The only prerequisite I have with that is to educate yourself, to know what's going on, and to have it publicly driven and not politically driven. And I think that's what's happening right now with the proportional representation referendum. This is an agenda item of the NDP and the Green Party. This is a backdoor deal that was part of their confidence supply agreement, and it's first and foremost on the Greens party's priorities. And I don't think that's what British Columbians want. I don't think they want to get in the mess of trying to uphold governments, those kind of things. So first and foremost, be educated. Learn what you're voting for. If you don't understand something, don't vote for it. Mm-hmm. Our electoral system is something we just can't have a flavor of the day on. This is something that's really important to us. It's provided us good government for over 100 years. It's been through thick and thin. We've been through depressions and wars and financial crisis, and it's always seemed to keep us as one of the top jurisdictions in the world. Mm-hmm. So first and foremost, please learn the issues first before you start voting on something.
Mm-hmm. And I know there's some concern with the NDP lowering the threshold for the referendum to pass basically as low as it can go. Is that a concern to rural areas like yours?
Yeah, so it's a two-pronged conundrum that the proportional representation serves up. One, you can lower the threshold to, as they say, have every vote count. And what that does, it certainly may do that, but sometimes be careful what you ask for, because you're going to really encourage a lot of fringe groups, a lot of one-party solution groups to come into the fold. There's 26 different registered parties in BC right now, mm-hmm. and some of them are not very good parties, in my opinion. They're very extreme parties. I mean, you got parties like in Germany and New Zealand that lean to anti-immigration and just really extreme sides to the equation, mm-hmm. and that's not a good thing. I don't think some of those parties, if they are well liked and people want to see those agenda items come through, then let's have a system that encourages a mass population to wrap themselves around it. Mm-hmm. The other side of the coin is if they get rid of that and they raise the threshold even higher, and I've even heard as high as 10 to 20%, 15%, then you do eliminate votes. And so when you talk about every vote counts, you actually are essentially throwing away votes because they don't meet certain thresholds. So it's a kind of a double conundrum that they've got going on there. But first and foremost, we got to be wary of bringing some other of these extreme parties into the fold.
Definitely. Turning to some local priorities, you've expressed some concern about the lack of government interest in wildlife management plans. How has that played out in Kootenay East in particular?
Yeah, you know, and I don't want to make this a partisan issue. This has been something that's been going on for the last 40, 45 years. We haven't seen a lot of money, a lot of funding, a lot of resources going into our wildlife management plans. And in areas like Kootenay East, it's why we live there. We recreate there. We you know, of course, industry is one of those things that gets us there, but to stay there is our backcountry, and those issues aren't being addressed. We're seeing a huge reduction in the number of ungulates, moose, deer, elk, all those great species are being reduced to historically low numbers, and something has to be done, and it's a holistic management plan that's going to do that. So that incorporates land access, ecosystem restoration, wildlife and habitat review, riparian areas, the whole 9 yards has to come into this. And I think that's probably why it hasn't been addressed, is because it's such a massive, it's such a big deal that it's going to take a lot of effort. And I think the way government is right now, I think we can find that amongst all parties to bring a really good plan together and to make it right for BC. This is another one of our natural resources. Wildlife is a natural resource, and we have to manage it as such. Some people say, let nature take its course, let nature do all its things, and that may be true in some remote areas, but when we have industry, when we have habitat loss from rural expansion or city expansion, we're part of the problem. So we have to be part of the solution as well.
You touched on land access there, and I did want to ask about that. I know that's come up in the past, particularly in the Elk Valley. Can you explain the conflict over access to Crown land?
So land access is a big deal in my riding for sure, and I can certainly say it's most likely a big deal in most rural areas as well. We see where we are in Kootenay East is we're in the bottom right corner of the province. So we are really tied to the Alberta border, and we're also tied to the US border. We get lots of people coming in wanting to recreate where we're at, and I welcome them. I think the more we can showcase our natural beauties of Kootenay East, the better. However, it comes at some consequences where some people are not being very respectful of the land. They're damaging it, they're treating it not very nicely, and they're not leaving it better than where they found it. So land access and land management plan addresses those issues, and we've worked on a couple. We've got a couple drawn up, and we're looking forward to implement those land access management plans really soon.
Oh, great. On the transportation front, what's the state of highway maintenance? Any concerns there?
Well, you know, it's, and I hope I don't get too emotional on this one, because it touches all of us. Highway maintenance. We've lost some very good people this winter over highway maintenance, and of course it's a big deal. And I have addressed the Minister of Transportation on this issue. We talk about standards, we talk about accountability, and those are all important discussions to have. We have a contractor in Kootenay East, Main Roads Contracting. You know, they've been there before. They've renewed their contract, and the ministry is giving them a 93 to 95% meeting or exceeding their expectations of the contract. Well, if you went into Kootenay East and you stood in a soapbox in the middle of town in the middle of winter and you proclaimed that, you probably wouldn't make it out alive, because they are people that are been affected by the highway maintenance, have lost their lives. And so my question to the minister is fairly straightforward. If the ministry that provides the oversight on the contract is saying that it's 93 to 95% successful, then two things are an issue. One, the standards have to be raised if the people feel this way, and that costs money, and that's another issue. But two, if the oversight isn't being provided, if that 93 to 95% approval isn't what it is, and the contractor isn't doing their job, then there's an oversight problem with the ministry. So my request has been to issue an independent review or an independent audit on the ministry to make sure that that oversight is correct, because that's the short and quick answer of getting to where we want to go as far as providing safety for people in in our area. So I've pitched that to the minister. She says that she's happy with the independent or the internal audits that they do.
Right.
But that lends itself to some biases, in my opinion. And I think to get everybody on the same page and to have everybody, recognize it is for what it is, then I think independent review is in order.
Absolutely. Probably a good time to take a short break here on Constituency Report. Grab a pen and paper. We'll put up contact information for MLA Tom Shypitka. Back to chat much more with him right after this. And welcome back to Constituency Report as we continue our chat today with Tom Shypitka, MLA for Kootenay East. Before the break, we were chatting about some transportation issues, and when it comes to transport by air, I hear WestJet will now be offering service to Cranbrook. That's great news for the community.
It is. It's great news. It's long-awaited news. We're happy to have WestJet serve our community and to further showcase and bring people into Kootenay East and show them what a great place it is.
Absolutely. Turning to healthcare, I know many communities in BC struggle with the challenge of recruiting medical professionals. What's the situation like in Kootenay East?
Well, I think the situation in Kootenay East is no different than most areas in BC and in Canada, for that matter. We have an issue in Kootenay East right now where we're having a hard time recruiting general practitioners, GPs, and most recently anesthesiologists have been in dire need. I'm happy to say, since my last discussion with Interior Health, we have brought some anesthesiologists to the area. Perfect. But it's a floating issue. It seems like when you need one, they eventually come, and then all of a sudden you have another issue happening. So right now, general practitioners, we're down a couple doctors. We'd like to see some more, but that comes with the local recruitment. The municipalities have to be a little bit more engaged. I think for the most part they are. But when you talk about doctor recruitment, you also forget about that most doctors have a spouse or a partner,
right.
and they have to be facilitated as well in the community. They have to find a job or they have to find something. So we try our best to recruit and to bring people in. We have committees. I actually was on the Red Carpet Committee, which was a committee that wined and dined doctors that came into the area and made the pitch on how great of an area it is. And so we need more of that.
What about residential and assisted care homes? Is that an area where the need is growing?
Yeah, so residential and assisted care homes are a big issue of mine right now. We have a couple contractors that are facilitating assisted and residential care, and we're looking at care quality. Some of these people, and all the people for that matter, when you talk about seniors and assisted living people, they are some of the people that have done their due diligence through life, and they've worked their butts off, and they've done everything great for society, and now it's their turn to get looked after. And we have to ensure that the care hours are properly allocated and making sure they're getting every ounce of the resource that they deserve. And so right now I've had some talks with Interior Health, and we've addressed that issue head on, and we are looking at better reporting. For example, care hours are reported audits twice a year. So Interior Health will come in, they'll look at the care hours, and they'll say, well, it seems like you've matched the requirements, everything, all is well, nothing to see here. However, what happens sometimes is you get these ebbs and flows during the year. So for example, at Christmas time, you might have a couple shortages of work, people are on holidays, they are sick or whatever it is, and you'll see a drop in care. Well, what'll happen is in January, they'll overstaff so that everything kind of comes back to even. Well, that's great that they're overstaffed at some point of the game, but the real issue is when they're understaffed, and we have to be on top of that a little bit more quicker. So I've looked at issues on addressing those, and I've been I've advocated very hard to address the concerns that the people in my riding have on assisted and senior care facilities.
Right. Staying with healthcare, I understand construction began in the fall for a permanent MRI space at the East Kootenay Regional Hospital. What does this mean for your constituents?
Well, MRI, anytime you can get a quicker diagnosis and not be inconvenienced of traveling hours and hours to the next hospital that provides an MRI, that's a win-win for everyone. I was actually on the board of directors for the regional district and also on the hospital board that brought forward the $2 million funding for this project. The government kicked in as well, and we had some great resources in Cranbrook. The Foundation of Health was one of them that stepped up to the plate and brought the money needed to secure the funding for the MRI. And it's going to be going in here, I think it's next month or the end of June sometime. We're really quick, and we can't be more excited about it. So the MRI coming into the regional hospital in Kootenay East is a huge win for us. We're not done there yet.
Yeah.
We've got other things to work on in our regional hospital, but that's just another piece in the puzzle that we're really happy to see come through.
Yeah, fantastic. Earlier this year, Dykar Pharmaceuticals acquired a medical cannabis production site in Cranbrook. Any thoughts you want to share on that announcement?
Well, when I first got on City Council back in 2014, I believe it was, the Dykar application was going through, and it was stalled and held up at the federal level for a lot of reasons. None of them good, in my opinion, but nonetheless, they were held up, and I have to hand it to the owners of Dykar and all the shareholders that hung in there through thick and thin. Medical marijuana, in my opinion, is something we need to explore, and I'm glad we have something in Cranbrook. There's a lot of illnesses and conditions that can be cured by a natural product such as marijuana, and you know, I think the further we can get away from synthesized drugs and things, I think quite honestly the better. So lots of opportunities there as far as treatment and assistance in people in our constituency, but also it provides economic growth. 200 jobs are going to be coming from this, and that's a great thing for Cranbrook and the Kootenay East.
An exciting project that broke ground last year was the revitalization of Idlewild Park Dam. Tell us a bit about this space and what is being prioritized within this restoration project.
Yeah, well, that's a real feel-good story, the Idlewild Park. It used to be Cranbrook's water reserve. What's the word I'm looking for?
Reservoir?
Yeah, it was where we got our water from.
Yeah.
So, but that was back in the 1920s, and the integrity of the dam was weakening, and there was a report that went out when I first got on City Council that this was a major threat to not only the environment if the dam broke, but also to lives lost and businesses lost. So we took it very seriously, City Council, and what we thought was a real liability issue and something that wasn't really sexy at all, we actually turned it into something really good. We turned turned lemons into lemonade, so to speak, and through help and partnerships through the federal government, provincial government, Conway Basin Trust, and the regional district of East Kootenay, we're able to piece together a really good plan to build the dam back and to make it bigger and build the park bigger and better than it was before. So lots of great revitalization. We're going to improve ecosystems there and habitat and beautify it and put in all kinds of neat, cool recreational uses like a toboggan hill we have there right now, but fishing and all those kind of good stuff that good things that make communities, and it really is a win-win because it is a city asset. It's a city asset of the Cranbrook Corporation, but it's also used by people in the outlying areas that don't live within the municipality. So we were able to bring everybody together and create a partnership, and the Idlewild project is just an excellent something I love to see happen. It is great. Just
about 5 minutes left in the show. We'll take a look at some great community events and celebrations. I want to mention the Chief Isodoro Trail that was completely open to celebrate Canada 150 last year. How does this project benefit the community?
Well, yeah, Chief Isidoro Trail. I mean, it's another feel-good story. I mean, recreation is something that we're all part of in Kootenay East, and hiking and biking is one of those things. We've got great landscape there. We've got just the best place to go for a stroll or for a walk. And so Chief Isidore Canyon is one of those trail systems that's just going to further showcase our area and show the world how great of a place it is to live there.
Wonderful. Yeah. Our next photo is from Grizz Days in Fernie. What sort of festivities do people enjoy at this one?
Well, Grizz Days is a great, yeah, it's me on a float there, but I haven't seen that photo before. But Grizz Days is a really popular event throughout not only Kootenay East, but throughout the whole region of British Columbia and Alberta. People come from all over the place. There's pancake breakfasts, and there's the hot wing eating contests, and there's the famous pub crawl that I like to participate in from time to time, or I've heard about it. Maybe I should say that. But no, it's a great time. It's epic. You've got a world-class ski hill there. You've got a great community. It's picturesque. When you go to Fernie, you don't even think you're on the planet Earth anymore. It's a piece of heaven. It really is. Yeah. And there's all the lodges that facilitate the area. And go to Fernie. Check it out. Make a trip out of it. Make a holiday of it. Go to Fernie. It's a world-class place.
See, no wonder you were on that red carpet committee. I'm sold. I'm coming to Fernie. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Fernie's great.
We have a photo from the CP holiday train. This is always a magical event, and judging from this photo, your suit is also looking quite magical.
Yeah, Don Cherry, eat your heart out there. The holiday train was an excellent time. We went through all the communities. We had stops in Sparwood, Fernie, Jaffrey, and Cranbrook, and every stop we went to was just absolutely full. People were just on board. We had Great Big Sea. Just trying to think of the guy's name now. God. Anyways, the lead singer from Great Big Sea was there and providing the entertainment, and it was first class. So you roll up in the train, they lower the doors, there's a huge stage on board, people get to party and dance and do all the great things, and it just another great example of life in the Kootenays. It's awesome.
Great. We have a photo from the Cranbrook History Center dinner. How did you enjoy this one? Dressed up again.
Yeah, there we are. That was fantastic. This was part of the Canada 150 initiative, and it showcased what life would be like around Confederation. So we had speeches from Sir John A. Macdonald and the opposition leader, and we had a 7-course dinner that represented Canadiana back in the day.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was drawn into the succotash. They had succotash. Now, I've never had succotash before, but and I always wondered what it was from the old cartoon days of suffering succotash. But it's actually a reduced lentil type. I don't even know what you call it. It's like a pasty kind of thing. But it's a mush. It's a staple of the old prairies and things like that. So 7 courses. It was absolutely first class, and I give full credit to the people that put that show on. It was great.
Awesome, and probably the last one we'll get to, Steele Days in Cranbrook. Another fun one? Saving
the best for last. Well, I shouldn't say that. They're all great. Everything's
right.
Great. And here I am in the famous, he and my family on the famous Clydesdales of Cranbrook, the McGibbon family that has these world-class Clydesdales. And Steele Days is a celebration in Cranbrook that goes back to the old late 1800s, and Sam Steele, the guy that came to the area to take care of law and order, and there's Fort Steele, that's his namesake. And so Sam Steele is just another thing like Grizz Days, where we have lots of great entertainment, and once again, come to Cranbrook, celebrate.
Excellent, will do. Well, thanks so much, Tom. Great show today. Tom Shypitka, MLA for Kootenay East, his website, tomshypitkamla.ca. Thanks so much for watching Constituency Report.